Good morning. You guys doing okay? Everybody good? Hey, you made it in here. I'm really happy about that. So I've been living in Murfreesboro. I came here. Man, it's weird because I tell people I'm from St. Louis, but I've lived here the majority of my life because time goes by really quick. I moved here in '98 for college. Swore I'd never stay in this small town. And here we are, 30 years later. In the 26 years or whatever that I've been here, I have never seen the roads as quickly cleared off. I think the city did a really, really good job this year. Yeah. I don't know if anyone from the city is in this room right now, but if you are, yeah, thank you for that. But glad you got to make it in safely. And I'm really, really glad you're here. And we're going to talk like friends this morning. We do this vision service a couple of times a year, and I think it's always important. I think it's important for new people to come in because you will learn a lot about our church in a very short amount of time. The other thing that I think is really important, if you've been here for any length of time, I think it's important to know where we're going. The Bible says that people die from a lack of vision. If you don't know where you're going, you run into dangerous things, right? You get into trouble. So we do these vision services. And here's where we're gonna talk as friends this morning. And if you're new, give it time, we'll be friends. But I've probably never felt in the 16 years I've been doing this, it'll be 16 years next month, and we've always done these vision services, and I remember the first time I did it, it was to about 20 people, and now, it's to the amount of people that it is now, but I've probably never felt as much of a sense of urgency as I have about this one. So I'm glad you're here. I was a little frustrated about the weather. I know that that's completely out of my control, but I just have to trust that whoever's gonna be here is who needs to be here. And that hopefully people will watch online. But this is a pretty important vision service for me, and hopefully for you if you call this your church home. And if you don't, I hope that it gives some clarity to that. So here's what we're gonna do. Everything will be in your notes handout that you got when you walked in. Everything will be on the screen. We will start the book of Hebrews next weekend. So if you're new here, we go through whole books of the Bible, and Hebrews is a really, really cool one. It's a neat one. We'll start that next weekend, and we'll get into that, and then the Gospel of Mark after that. And that'll kind of round out the first half of our year for the most part. So we'll get into that next weekend. But this weekend, I just want to tell you a little bit about our church. I'm going to go through the first half of this very, very quickly because I think we have some pretty important things to talk about towards the end, and we'll get into that. But hold on to your notes. Everything will be on the screen. And we'll get back into the scripture next weekend. So I'm kind of losing my train of thought there for a second. So let me pray. Let's get into this. And and we'll just see where the Lord takes us this morning, okay? Thank you so much for being here. One of the things we're gonna talk about a little bit today, and as we get into Hebrews, is you don't have to come to this church. There are other great churches in this community, but people need to be at church. Church is extremely important, and very, very glad you're here. Very glad that you took the time and made it out this morning. So let me pray. Let's dive into this, and hopefully you'll get some encouragement and be challenged a little bit this morning, all right? Let me pray. Father God, we love you. Lord, thank you so much. Thank you, God, for everyone in this room. Lord, thank you for our city. I'm just really impressed with them during this snowstorm, God, that they took care of the roads and made sure everything was in good shape as best as they could. Thank you for that, God, that we can come here this morning, we can worship together, we can be in church. Father, Lord, as we talk a little bit about our vision today, you have always blessed this church for almost 16 years now, Lord. You have miraculously grown this church and provided for this church. And Father, I do not know all the answers for the future, Lord, but you do. And so I just pray that as we talk as a church family about where we're going, I pray that you bless this church. Keep your hand on this church. We pray that you bless every church, Father, in our city. And Lord, give them all clear vision and direction. Give our other campuses vision and direction, Lord. And Lord, we just want to be a church that honors you, honors our city, blesses those around us, God, and points people to you. And so keep your hand on us. We love you, we thank you, we praise you. Pray all of these things in your name, Lord, in Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so if you've been around the building at all, we have it painted in a couple of the foyers. We have it on the publications that we put out, the notes. Our whole website is built around our vision statement. And once upon a time, I used to feel weird about this because I thought it was all businessy, right? And then you get into the Bible, and the Bible makes it very clear that the people of God should have a vision. And so our vision statement here is simply this: to lead people to Christ through authentic worship, authentic community, and authentic community service. Now, it's very, very simple, very, very straightforward. And the way by which we do that is this. If you've ever been to a Next class, I show this at Next class, this is very, very simple. Sometimes people go, man, you're a big church. I bet you guys do a lot of stuff. We actually do very little, but the things we do very big, if that makes any sense. So we do less, but we do those things bigger. Our church only does 5 things. This is it. We only do 5 things. And what I'm going to do is just briefly walk you through those. I'm gonna do this quickly because I want to get to the stuff at the end and hang out on it a little bit longer. But I just want to briefly tell you about these 5 steps, okay? The first one is what you're doing right now. And what it looks like on the weekend when we do worship, we have always done it the exact same way. If you actually study church history, church really hasn't changed much. We think it has, but the way in which church is done, the methods have not changed very often. If you study like the Didache, which is like a book that the early church founding fathers kind of wrote and went through and worked on, there are several components about getting together as Christians that has kind of always existed. They get together and they pray, they worship, they do verse by verse teaching from the Bible, and then they have an opportunity to respond to the word. That's kind of always existed. That's what we always do here. So on the weekends, that's what you'll get. You'll get worship, you'll get verse by verse teaching, and then at the end of service, if you're not a Christian, we always have someone up here at the corner of the stage if you have any questions. If you need prayer, we always have prayer teams, men and women, on both sides of the stage. And then all the way around the room, you guys hear it all the time, right? Wherever there's a lamp on a table, the posts in the middle, we offer communion. And we'll do that today as well. We offer the body and blood of Jesus Christ, and that's just a time for us to reflect, to respond, to make sure that all of our hearts are in the right place. That's what you'll get virtually every single weekend here. Now, in 2024, our church averaged just a little over 8,000 people, 8,078. Last weekend, we had 8,400. That'll probably be even bigger this coming weekend. We haven't really got into the rhythm yet of 2025. It'll probably be around 9,000 or so this coming weekend. Those numbers are not as important to me as this third one. In 2024, we baptized 705 people. That's good. In fact, that might be the most important number that we see all morning, okay? So we're doing okay with that, but what we need is we just need people to be consistent. Even in the Hebrews that we're about to get into, the author kind of chastises the church community a little bit for not being consistent with church. We need a church home. It is vitally important as our growth as a Christian, all right? So from weekend services, we hope to get you to a Next class. So typically the second Monday of every month, I think this month it's actually the third Monday, sometimes it shifts around, but typically the second Monday of every month, people come in, we give you a tour of the whole place. We break you off into groups of 10 or 15. All the people who work here, we give you a tour. We come back in here. I share my personal testimony, tell you how we started the church. I show you some fun pictures. We let you ask any questions you need to ask about the church to get to know us more. And it's very casual, just a time for us to kind of get to know each other a little bit. all right? We do this every single month, and we've been doing that, again, for almost 16 years. So right now, about 200 people a month come and do that. Again, that's great. And so that's not 200 people a month every month that are brand new. Sometimes people have been coming here for years, but they've just never done an X class. But again, those are going really, really well. So what do we need from you? I just need you to come to one. If you've never been to one, just come to one. We'll do one in a couple of weeks from now. We do it every single month. It's neat to just see the whole building, hear about all the stuff that happens in here. Again, you can ask questions. I get to say hi to you and give you a hug. I'm a hugger, and if as long as you are as well, right? I will ask you, can I hug you? If you say yes, I will hug you. But it's just a time to come and just to meet some people and get a little bit more plugged in. All right, so as we keep working down that chain, we get into the third step, which is our development. That's kind of like your theological development, your development as a Christian. The first thing that we encourage virtually everyone to get into is our Following Jesus class. It's a fabulous class. We wrote the curriculum for that. They're doing that in multiple states in the United States, different churches. They're doing it in different places in Europe right now, in certain countries in South America. They're doing it in Uganda, Africa. We've had thousands of people go through Following Jesus in East Africa. It's a really, really good curriculum. We work through that. It's kind of the fundamentals of the Christian faith. And it also tells you a little bit about our church. And it also gets you in a place to where you meet people. Large group, small group. So you get to integrate in a little bit, get to know some people. It makes a big church feel like a small church. From that, we have Authentic Discipleship. That is a course that we also wrote the curriculum for. And the point of that is not how to be a disciple of Jesus, but how to go out and make more disciples of Jesus. How to introduce someone to Christ, introduce someone to the Word of God, walk with them, hold them accountable, build a relationship with them, how to make disciples. Some other ones we offer are Experience Finance. It's a free one-day study The curriculum was written by some guys that come to church here. You come in and they're all very successful businessmen, and it's not about getting rich or anything. It's just, how do you pay off debt? How do you handle money in a godly manner? How do you set yourself up for investments in the future and make sure you put money back for your kids' college and stuff like that? Just simple, basic principles of how to handle money wisely. It's free, and it's really, really good. We offer that. And then we offer a Preparing for Marriage class. We do it 3 times a year. It's an 8-week course for all people who are engaged, and also a really, really great course. One of the teachers of that, they've been married 45 plus years, and they have a lot of wisdom, and a really, really great class. So how are we doing? Again, pretty well. We had just shy of 1,000 people go through Following Jesus last year. We had just shy of 200 go through AD. We had 54 couples. That's a lot of weddings. 108 people go through Preparing for Marriage. We had 230 people go through Experience Finance. It's good, really, really good. Good response. And so what do we want from that? What do we need? I just need you to get involved in these things. If you are serving at this church, we will ask you to go through at least Following Jesus. We want to make sure we're on the same page theologically. We want to make sure that we're all in unison in the vision that God has given us as a church. So at the very least, we want you to go through Following Jesus. But we want you to work through this process. It'll be good for you. It'll bless you. Be good for your family, all right? The next step is small groups. We call them life groups, getting into community. So we encourage people not only to be in groups, but to be in groups that are reaching your neighborhoods. So if there is a group, I'll get to this here in a second, we have over 200 groups at this church, and they're not in the church. They're all outside of the church. And we want them to be outside of the church. Why? Because we don't want this to turn into just a country club or a social enclave. We want you to be out in coffee shops, be out in each other's homes, be out in neighborhoods, because you might have a neighbor that gets intimidated by a church of 8,500 people, but they may not be intimidated by a group of 15 in your house. And so you can meet with people there, get them into a relationship with other believers, and then maybe they won't feel so uncomfortable coming to a big church. And so we want them to be evangelistic. We want them to be discipling. We hope groups grow so they have to split off, which I know is uncomfortable, but this is the gospel working, right? So here's the thing at this church. If you come to this church all the way from elementary children to adults, we do small groups. So your kids right now will do a large group setting, and then they will do a small group setting. Your middle schoolers will do a large group setting and a small group setting. High schoolers, Evident, that's our college and career age, they do that, and then that's what we do. So everyone from the youngest all the way up to the oldest, we encourage small groups. So how are we doing with this? Well, if you include the entire church, we probably have 75% of all the people who come here into some kind of a group, but that's your children, middle schoolers, high schoolers, college. When it comes to actual adults, right? About 1 out of every 3 adults is in a small group that we know of. It may be more than that, but here's the thing. We were behind quite a bit in developing groups, and we have worked very, very diligently. I say we, my team that does life groups, they have worked very, very diligently. We have about 200 groups. We're launching 13 more just this month, but we still have a long ways to go, okay? We wanna create as many opportunities for you guys to get in community as possible. Now, if you are interested in this, in a couple of weeks, on Saturday at 2:30 on the 25th, right back here, if you were to go through this wall, don't go through this wall, go through these doors over here. Right back here, there is a classroom called the Fox Room. It's a bigger room. We'll have an intro to life groups meeting, basically an informational meeting for groups back there. And then we'll do this again on the 26th at noon, right? So if you come to this service, the 10, you can head right back over there and go to an intro to life groups thing in the Fox Room right behind the sanctuary, right? It's a good picture of Hans and his kids. I like this picture. Yeah, isn't that a good picture? So, and if you're smiling doing parking, like you're very much Holy Spirit and Hans. So, the last stage we want to get you to is into serving. We have lots of ways for you to do this. We have about 2,000 children at this campus. That's a lot of kids, guys, a lot of kids. And if you love kids, we really love you. So if you wanna serve in nursery, if you wanna serve in Echo, our student ministries is growing really rapidly. We need help with that. We always need help in hospitality. I love hospitality. That's where I'd serve if I wasn't up here. I would really enjoy that. Parking team, we always need help with that. We have really, really cool shirts now if you get involved with that, and it's free. And so those are things inside the church. We also have things that our church does outside. There's a homeless shelter just right over the train tracks, Journey Home, and Scott, he's been coming to church here for a long time. We feed homeless people on Saturday and Sundays over there. It's 5,000 if you wanna get involved in that. There's a prison right down the road this direction. If you wanna get involved with prison ministry, Reclaimed, we do that with men and women every single week. We have bar ministry that happens on the square every single Friday. If you ever drive around the square late at night on a Friday and you see someone dressed up as a hot dog or someone holding a big sign that says free hot dogs, you go to church with those people, they come here. And what we do, we've been doing this for 14 years. We go out there and we offer free water, free coffee, free hot dogs to all the people coming out of the clubs and the bars late at night on the square. And we do that in the hopes of getting them sober, talking to them, hanging out with them a little bit so they don't carelessly get in their car and hurt somebody or hurt themselves. We've been doing that for about 14 years and we have baptized a lot of people because we gave them a free hot dog on the square. We have Embrace Grace, which works with moms who have either had an abortion or who have considered an abortion or are single parents, and we work with them and love on them and help them. We have Stepping Stones that works with just women with children who are homeless, and then there's about 90 nonprofits that we work with, and we would love to get you involved serving in some way. Listen, Christians are to serve because Jesus Christ, the one we claim to follow, said, "I didn't come to be served, I came to serve." And so we are, as Christians, to be serving in some capacity in the city. How are we doing? Pretty good. About twice the national average. Of adults, about 38% of our adults that we know of are serving in some capacity. There's probably a lot of people serving outside of the church that we don't know of, but within the church, about 38%. That's pretty good. But that still leaves 62% that may not serve. So if you wanna serve, you're in luck. Tomorrow night, here in this room, we're gonna have a volunteer fair. You can come in, it's just kind of a come, check things out. You don't have to stay that long. We'll give you a swag bag with some fun stuff in it. You can come, you can check out different ministries, ask questions, and you can sign up for something and you can start serving. So we'll get you in there, we'll get you plugged in. Tomorrow night, we have our volunteer fair. Another thing that is not a part of our 5 steps, but it's something that I want to talk to you about is our missions work. This is advancing the gospel. right? This isn't community service as much as how are we getting the gospel out? Well, in the state of Tennessee, we have 4 campuses. We have planted 4 churches in less than 16 years. 3 of those have been in the last 7 years, okay? That's a lot. We hope to plant more, but we've got to figure out what this church is doing before we can plant more, and we'll talk about that here in a second. We have them in 4 different counties. They all have their own pastors, right? They all work under the Experience Community. They look and feel like this, and we have them in 4 counties. So we're trying to reach our state. We support 4 churches in New England. We support 2 in Massachusetts, Garden City, that's right outside of Boston. It's in Beverly, if you're familiar with that area. New Life Church is a little bit more in a rural area in Middle Mass. City Church in Albany, New York. Hope Church in Seaford, Delaware. And then there are 6 other individuals that work in churches in New England that we do not support the whole church, but we support their specific ministry. Okay, so we're trying to do as much as we can in the Northeast. We partner with different nonprofits and churches, and we take missions trips to El Salvador, to Egypt, Guatemala, Costa Rica. We work with the Eastern European Mission. That's a lot in like Ukraine, Croatia, kind of Central Europe, a lot of those places, Eastern Europe. And then there are 13 other international partnerships that we have. So here's the thing about our church. We are a non-denominational church. We are completely autonomous. And there's a lot of good stuff about that. There are also a lot of challenges. For instance, the Southern Baptist Church probably does missions better than anybody. They do a great job. That's a large organization, a lot of money, a lot of structure, a lot of employees. We don't have anything like that. So we had to kind of start from scratch. And so we've been working hard, working diligently to do as much foreign missions as we possibly can. So how are we doing with that? Better. We still got a long way to go, but we're doing better. 2025, we will take 7 missions trips. Take a couple to El Salvador, a couple to Egypt. We're gonna take 1 to Massachusetts, 1 to New York. There's a couple of other missions trips that we have planned. And what we need is we need to do a better job of communicating missions to you. And then you guys need to pray about what mission trip you wanna go on. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to create different kind of levels, right? So, if you want to take a 2-hour flight to Boston Logan, I think it's about 2 hours, less than that, on JetBlue, direct flight, we can do that. We can serve in a church up in that area where it's about 2% Christian, very cheap, very low impact. We can do that. You can be a part of that. Or if you want to fly to literally the other side of the planet, we can accommodate you in that too and take you to Egypt. And you can be on a plane for 22 hours if you want. We can do that as well. So you can do a short mission trip. You can do kind of a mid-range to like El Salvador, or if you just want to go as far as humanly possible until you start to circle back around the earth, we can do that as well. You just pray about which one you want to do, and we will make sure that it's taken care of, all right? Okay, finances. Now, if you are new here, I do not like talking about finances. I'm uncomfortable with it, but I'm gonna tell you why we talk about money in this church. The first thing is a lot of people give a lot of money to this church, and we want to be transparent about where that money goes, because I never want anyone to be able to look at me or my team or this church and have any questions about our integrity when it comes to money. So the first reason why I'm gonna show you all the stuff I'm about to show you is I wanna live above reproach. So no one can look and go, oh, what's that church doing with their money? I'll show you exactly what we're doing with our money, right? To live above reproach. The second reason why I wanna show you all the things I'm about to show you here in a second is we wanna be held accountable as being good stewards. I'm gonna be, and this bleeds into the third reason. If you tithe to this church, if you biblically tithe, give 10% of your income to this church, for the majority of us, that is the biggest expense in our life, maybe except our rent or mortgage. That's a big commitment. So if you're going to trust me with 10% of your income, I wanna make sure that I am showing you where that goes. I'm being a good steward with your sacrifice, that I am honoring what you are doing for the church. And so I'm not showing you these numbers to brag or to guilt you or to manipulate you, but we are very frugal here. We are very benevolent, and we are very mindful, very conscientious of how much of a sacrifice that some of you are making, okay? So we are very, very aware of that. So in 2024, our expenses at the end of the year equaled up to $14.2 million for all 4 campuses. Our income was 17.1, that's great. So because we were a little tight, because we could squeeze a little bit more out of it, what we were able to do is put back almost $4 million in 2024 in savings, which sounds like a lot, but when you have a church this big of 8,500 people or more, it's not enough. So we didn't have much in savings, so we got to finally start building up a little bit of a savings. In 2025, here's what we plan to do, and we will do this. Our estimated expenses are to be around $15.5 million for all 4 campuses. That includes absolutely everything. We project that we'll bring in $19 million or more. But what we're going to do is we're going to work on a budget of 15.5 regardless of how much comes in. And however much comes in after that 15.5, we're gonna pretend like it doesn't exist. We're gonna stick it in savings and we're not gonna touch it. We're not gonna do anything with it. And the reason why we're doing that is because this church, this campus, we have got to start thinking about the future. I'm talking generations. We've got to start thinking about that. And I'll get to that a little bit more here in a second. When it comes to our full-time and part-time salaries, between our 4 campuses, we have about 140 employees. About 80 of those are full-time. Of all of the employees combined, our salaries are about $4.874 million. That's about 31% of the budget, not of the total income. If you take our total income, our salaries are 26%. Now, I'm not saying this to boast or brag. The average in the United States for a church's income to salary ratio is 50 to 55%. So whenever someone goes, man, they're just getting rich at that mega church, I can absolutely prove to you that we are not. We are working at half of what most churches function on when it comes to their salaries. So we do pay lots of employee taxes. We pay a lot for health benefits. If anyone ever says affordable and healthcare in the same sentence, they're full of it. So maybe I shouldn't have said that, but it's true. We pay $1.737 million just for our health benefits at this church. It is extremely expensive. We have the police and sheriff's department at this building 6 of the 7 days of the week. And that's just under $100,000. We do that just to make sure you guys are safe. During the week when your kids are in Eon or Encounter, there are police and sheriff's department here. When your kids are in the nursery, there are police and sheriff's department, but we just want to make everyone as safe as possible. Yeah, thank you for that. We have an outside CPA that does not come to church here, and we did that on purpose. They go to New Vision. He's a really good guy, but no, I'm just joking. I'm really good friends with Brady Cooper, by the way. But he goes to New Vision. He's a really, really good man. I think he might actually be one of their deacons over there. But we have an outside CPA that audits our finances every single year. We pay him. He doesn't come to church here. He's a good, reputable man. And we just want someone outside of this place to look at our finances and just make sure that we're doing everything legal and doing it the way we should, okay? Our ministry expenses, I know this stuff is kind of boring, but I just want you to know where it all goes. Our ministry expenses, that is everything from nursery all the way to like different adult ministries. Cost us about $1.5 million between all 4 campuses. Operating costs, that's our utilities. You are in the most inefficient building in Rutherford County, and we own 3 really inefficient buildings in 3 different counties. Isn't that nice? So anyways, we have a lot in utilities. Our Tullahoma campus, we rent that campus, and that's about $300,000 a year for that campus. So that's where a lot of those expenses go. Construction costs, we're about to do some pretty major build out on this side of the building. I'll talk about that here in a second. We've put a budget for $1 million. I hope we come in way under that, but worst case scenario, $1 million to build out everything over there. Our outreach and benevolence, which I get extremely excited about. In 2025, we will give at least $4.65 million. That is 30% of our entire budget will be given away. Thank you. But I appreciate that. That's something that's one of the reasons why I think God has blessed this church so much. And I feel like if I'm gonna ask you to sacrifice your personal income for the work of the ministry, I feel like the ministry needs to set an example and sacrifice a large portion of its income back to the city. I can go on and on about where this $4.65 million goes. One of the things in 2024 that I was really proud of is this church put over $200,000 just into local schools. And that's not just like, like flying over it and dumping baskets of money on the schools. We're building decks because they weren't safe for kids. We're putting carpet in their auditoriums because the carpet was 50 years old. We're going in and doing things that and I'm not trying to be mean, that the government and the city won't budget out for. We will go in and step in as a church and meet those needs. That's just one thing that we did. That was about $200,000 of $4.65 million. Another thing that we're very proud of here is we have zero debt. We have never had debt. It's just something that we don't do. So we own 3 out of our 4 buildings. We rent the Tullahoma campus, and the reason why we rent the Tullahoma campus is we will save up the cash and we will write a check for it eventually. So with our Cannon County campus, we walked in day 1, wrote a check, give us the building, right? With our Shelbyville campus, which is a really beautiful campus, we wrote a check, give us the building. This one, we never took out a loan. I got to know the former owner of this building, and I made a deal with him that I would pay it off, just pay him cash and not take out a loan. That's what we did. We paid $4.8 million off at this building in 3 years and 10 months. And so we are completely debt-free. So here's a couple of things. One, I do not know who gives at this church. The only people I know that if they give or not are people who work here and our elders. And that's just for logistics. You're not gonna take a salary at this church if you're not willing to also contribute in to the vision of this church. So I'm not trying to be mean. If you ever apply for a job here at this church, don't apply if you do not financially contribute to this church. I'm not gonna take these people's money and give it to you if you also don't wanna contribute to that vision. And so that goes with everyone who works here at this church. We all tithe back, right? And we check that. Also, our elders at this church, we know for sure that they tithe at this church. I'm not going to let these men and women have a say-so in the future of this church if they're not willing to also make that sacrifice and commit financially to this church. That's the only people I know who give at this church. And so if you come up to me and you're just like, hey, I'm like, I don't want to know. I don't care to know. So some people disagree on biblical tithing. I think it is biblical. Some people don't think it's a New Testament thing. The bottom line is this though, if people do not financially contribute to the local church we couldn't do what we're doing right now, let alone feed tens of thousands of people every year, help out prisoners, give Bibles away to FCA and the Eastern European Mission, and think we couldn't do any of that stuff. And so it's funny, people complain about churches asking for money, and then the same people complain that the church is not doing more for the city. Where do you think that money comes from, right? It comes from all of us. Another thing is this church has never done, I'm being recorded right now. This church has never done, nor will ever do a building campaign. We will never do it. I will never try to manipulate you and, hey, we're trying to raise 35. There's a church, man, I shouldn't say it. There's a church in another county not too far from here that raised $45 million for an outdoor park. I will never do that bull crap to you. I will never ask you. I will never manipulate you. We will never have decadent, ridiculous buildings that don't meet our needs. I will never make you sign pledge cards. We will never put a thermometer on the wall and mark it off as we will never do any of that. I have never done that, nor will I ever do that. The only financial thing I've ever asked of this church is what I think is biblical, and that is tithes and offerings. And if all of us would just pull our weight with our tithing, we would have so much money, we wouldn't even know what to do with it. That's the honest to God truth. And so if we would just all do our part, I don't want to manipulate. I'm not going to do a banquet for the top 10% of the givers in the church. I'm not going to do any of that crap. A lot of churches do that stuff, and I think it's wrong. I think it's unethical, and I think it's manipulative, and I'm not going to do it. But what I ask in return is, let's just all be faithful, right? Let's just all be faithful with our finances, okay? So, exciting stuff, fun stuff. All the bad stuff is, we're done with that. Let's talk about fun stuff. Some recent wins. I cannot go over all the wins of this church. There are just too many, but a couple. Baptized over 700 people last year, $4.5 million given away. Evident has really stepped up at MTSU, especially in the light of the young individual that committed suicide at MTSU. Our Evident really stepped in and did a lot of ministry over there. We've had a lot of high school and middle school growth. Just last month, because of you guys, 1,100 children that don't even come to church here received Christmas gifts from you guys. That's amazing. It's good. At our last prayer night, we had over 2,000 people at our last prayer night. That one is very, very important to me, that people are showing up to pray. Think about that, guys. 2,000 people getting together to pray in one evening. That's a big deal. And we have very, very successfully launched our pastoral ministry. What that is, I said this at the last next class, I've hired 5 individuals, both men and women, who all they do is they meet with congregants. Most of them are older. They're in their 50s, 60s, 70s. I think the youngest one is 58 years old, and they are older. They are wiser. They're very godly people. And so here's the thing about this, and here's why I bring it up. I cannot promise that I will always be there for you. I cannot promise that. But I can promise that our church will always be there for you. But it can't always be me. It can't always be me that does your wedding. It can't always be me that does your friend's funeral. It can't always, and listen, I love you guys, but this is unfair. Whenever people send emails to my assistant or to the church and they say things, and this has happened many times, so-and-so will take their life if Corey doesn't step in. Our marriage will end if Corey doesn't fix it. That's unfair. That is putting me in a position that there is no way I can make you happy. There's no way I can satisfy that. I will only fail you, right? And that is unfair, and it's not okay, right? So someone, left our church and doesn't like me anymore because after my 5th service, I wanted to go home, and they wanted to stop me, and they made a big deal out of it, and I am not God. And we have hired a lot of people, good, Spirit-filled people that are there to help, right? It can't always be me. And this is why Jesus made disciples, and this is why his disciples made disciples, because it's supposed to be spread out. And so we're doing that for you. Just please honor that and respect that, if I can say that, okay? Something we're super excited about. This will be at our noon service. We are going to work very, very hard to create more opportunities for Spanish-speaking individuals, specifically at our 12, and if it grows, we'll just start doing it at more of the services. What we're going to do is we're not going to do a separate Spanish church away from everyone, because here's the thing, when we get to heaven, there's gonna be a lot of people that are not like us, and we just gotta be comfortable about being around diversity. So we're gonna have, what we're gonna do is at the noon service, we're gonna have notes in English and Spanish. We're gonna have someone in a back room, Jose, he's an old friend of mine. He spoke at Advent. He is gonna be back there translating. We're gonna give people who are Spanish speaking different equipment to where they can come, sit in service, just like all of us in here, and everything in real time be translated to them in Spanish. We will also have people in the Echo area. We've just started investing in. It's a really, really neat piece of technology. It's a lanyard that they wear, and in real time, they can speak into it, and it translates backwards and forwards between 2 people in real time. So if a family shows up, yeah, it's okay to clap for that too, it's good. So if a Spanish-speaking family shows up and they have some kids over there, maybe they have a kid in Eon, they come in here, every single avenue, we will have it all covered to where it accommodates that family. So we're gonna do a soft launch next weekend on that. If you are interested in helping with this, if you wanna get involved, if you are bilingual or maybe you have family that is Hispanic or anything like that, we would love to touch base with you. Savut, if you send an email, savut@experiencecc.com. Savut also wanted me to remind you, he is not Hispanic, he is Cambodian. So if you send that in Spanish, we're gonna have to send that to Jose. He'll have to translate that, and then he will send it over to Savut. Savut made it very clear he speaks very little Spanish. So that's something we're super excited about. We are also super excited about, we are doing a leadership development study. Now we're gonna do a trial run of this, February 25th through May 6th. This will be for people who are interested in like high level leadership stuff. We're gonna do 5 books in 10 weeks. I'm gonna teach one of the books, actually 2 of the books, and then some other people here on staff are gonna teach some of the books. This is stuff like Patrick Lencioni, Jim Collins, John Maxwell, like leadership that can apply if you're a stay-at-home mom or a CEO of a corporation. It's just good leadership principles. There will be an application process for this. So we will have people submit stuff to us and we will filter that out. I think we're gonna do about 30 people. We'll see how it goes, and if it goes really, really well, we'll just keep doing them a couple of times a year, all right? 2025, we're gonna put a huge emphasis on student ministries. Recently, there was a report that came out, I think it was about a month and a half ago. Rutherford County projects there will be 10,000 new students in Rutherford County every single year. Where are they gonna go to school? I don't know. But 10,000 a year will be coming into Rutherford County. If that's the case, not just this church, all churches need to get to work. That's a lot of students. So we are putting a lot of emphasis on our student ministries. We are creating more fun events that can, the good invitation to get more of students' friends here. We're not going to compromise teaching the word. We're not going to compromise doing groups. We're also gonna be building out that 11,000 square foot that used to be Mayday. We're building that out for Encounter and Evident. That will be their space over there. That means that Eon will then get this entire 10,000 square foot, that's middle school, over here. So we're trying to provide better environments for student ministries to flourish. So throughout the week, that whole 11,000 square foot over there, which should hopefully be done by March, that area is going to be used for high schoolers and college students throughout the week. They'll have that whole designated area. It's a really neat area, by the way. And then on the weekends, that will open up 11,000 more square foot for Echo to use. So then they will have a much bigger space as well that they can grow into that area. And we hope to have a second phase. We're building, I think, 8 classrooms in what is the Echo area right now. We hope to have that done by Easter weekend because we'll have a lot of people here and hopefully we will be able to accommodate that space, right? So a couple of challenges. 2 of our biggest challenges are right here. Kyle and Mitch, right? No, I'm just joking. Some challenges that we are going to face in 2025. The first challenge is this. It's a big church. It's an evolving church. Jesus made it very clear. He wants his church to be a house of prayer. More so than a house of good teaching, more so than a house of good worship. If we do everything right here, but we are not praying, we have ultimately failed. We start a fast tomorrow. Listen, yeah. Thank you. Look, I love all you guys. Don't let any of these fast booklets be left over. We're not making any money on that. We lose about $4 every time we sell one of those. But please, get a fast booklet, do this fast with us. Is fasting easy? Absolutely. It's not meant to be easy. It is very, very difficult. You know what Jesus said though? Some things only come when you pray and you fast. We have to be a church that fasts. Last year, we had about 3,000 people do the fast. That's wonderful. We have multiple churches in multiple states doing this fast with us. Jump in on this fast. And if you make a mistake with the fast, that's okay. Start over the next day and let's work through this fast, okay? We're also going to send some objectives to you throughout this fast. Like, hey, pray for the future of our church. Hey, pray for our city, things like that. We're trying to create more prayer opportunities for you here. We have the loft open throughout the week. If you have some time throughout the week, come by during the fast and pray up in the loft. It's a great room to just be quiet in and pray a little bit. We're working on creating more prayer groups. We're working on training more people to be on the prayer teams. Our prayer nights, we're putting more and more energy and time into these prayer nights. Again, we had 2,000 people at the last one. That is awesome. We want more and more people praying. That is the key to all of this, is we have to be talking to God. I'll tell you another challenge we're having, and I think some of you have felt it. For the first time in 16 years, and this is our 6th address since I've started the church. It's the 6th place we've been in 16 years. We are starting to feel the effects of being grossly under, we don't have room. We are underspaced, if that's a word. A typical church our size would have over 1,000 parking spaces. We have 400. And you guys know this if you park here. It's rough. And so our limited exterior space and our limited interior space, for the first time since I started the church, like we're really feeling it. It is starting to have a negative impact on our church. Also, if you typically come to the 10, this is a low 10 o'clock service. This is a small 10 o'clock service today. If you come to the 10, we may ask you to go to a service that has less people in it. And that's just an easy way for you to help us free up some space for other people to hear the gospel. But that just kind of depends on what the first quarter looks like. Here's a couple of things though. We're not gonna compromise how we do church. We have always had high integrity here. We will keep high integrity. We will not compromise our benevolence. When it comes to money, we could just not give benevolently in 2025 have an extra $5 million sitting around, but I don't think God's gonna bless that. We're never gonna compromise our benevolence. We're not gonna compromise our mission work. We're not gonna compromise the ministry that we do. But in 2025, we're all gonna have to agree as a community that it might be a little uncomfortable for a while. We're gonna have to tighten up. We're gonna have to make some sacrifices because we're out of space. We have to prepare for the future. I'm not talking about just like 3 years from now. I'm talking about our kids and our kids' kids. And there are about 70% of Murfreesboro does not attend any kind of house of worship. So we always talk about, we're in the Bible Belt, got some big churches in town. 30%. That's a big F if you're taking a test. We are way behind the curve, and we have got to create more opportunities for people to hear the gospel. So as we grow and as we prepare for long-term ministry, God is blessing some things at this church, and I don't mean that boastfully, but God is blessing some things here, and we cannot compromise that. What is God blessing? I think I know God blesses the fact that we teach the Bible. Word for word, sometimes it's really encouraging, sometimes it hurts a little bit, but we go through the word. If anyone ever asks me, I've written 2 books about it, I've spoken to I don't know how many churches around the world and around the country, and people ask, what is the secret sauce of growing a church? And I say, teach this book, teach this book. This is like a magnet for people who are hungry. This is the truth, teach it. Right? We cannot forget that God is blessing us because we teach this book. God is also blessing us because we have an environment here to where it doesn't matter what color you are, where you're from, the mistakes you've made, the things you struggle with, the sin you've committed, anyone can come in here and feel loved and welcomed and hear the truth. And we cannot lose sight of that. We also cannot forget that God is blessing us because we serve the city. Because we're doing everything, we have such a great reputation in this city for helping the community. So what do we need to do? We have to make sure that the fundamentals are in place, right? The foundation is in place. What is that? We need to be praying as a church. We need to be soaking up the word, and we need to be obedient to the word. We also need to be in community. You are not designed by God to do this alone. Be in community, be in some kind of group, serve somewhere, have some people around you. Here's what we must also do. We must consciously strive to fall more in love with Jesus. That's the easy part because he's always good. The other part is we must consciously strive to love people more and more and more. More and more and more we must love people. We must fall in love with people. So if you haven't noticed, and if you're new here, you probably noticed coming in here, this is not the easiest church to find. We're not in the most ideal location. It's not the easiest church to get into the building. It's not the easiest church to get out of the building. And we don't have a lot of amenities that most churches take for granted, like grass, right? We don't have that. A lot of churches have land. We don't have land. We don't have ample square footage. We don't even really have enough parking. We don't have any fancy decor. Do we have the neatest building in Rutherford County? Absolutely, but it's not fancy. We don't have a lot of amenities here. So this year, and if you're coming here and you're new, it's a different experience. It's a little uncomfortable. But if you're looking for these things, if you're here and you're new and you're like, man, I want, playgrounds and huge green space and the room to just run around and, so much parking that I can take up 3 spots and not have to worry about it. If that's what you're looking for, we don't have any of that to offer you. What we do have to offer you here, though, is this. We are real. We are genuine. We are authentic. We are real. What we do have to offer you here is the Bible. Unadulterated, just like God wanted it to be taught, we offer you that. We offer you community here. There are some of the neatest people you will ever meet in this room with you right now. So much diversity. I think it was 2 weekends ago, I met 2 ladies from Sudan, a couple from Quebec, a woman from Ireland. I mean, there's so much diversity and so many neat people that are here, all kinds of different backgrounds. This church, what we can offer you is a church that has a good reputation in the city, and not just with Christians. So many times, I'm not on any of these like Facebook groups, but people send them to me all the time. There'll be a Facebook group where someone will say things like, I'm a stone cold atheist, but I respect the heck out of the Experience Community Church for what they do in the city. That makes me very proud. What we do offer you is a church that has street credibility in this town. We have a clear discipleship process. There is no ambiguity as to how to grow in this church. I showed it to you, those 5 steps. Well, how do I grow in this church? We'll show you. We'll show you exactly how to grow. And we have a wonderful environment in this church. Now, it is more inconvenient to come to this church than most places. But I feel very confident that anyone can walk through these doors, anybody, and they can feel welcomed, loved, and hear the truth. And I'm very confident we can offer that. So the culture, thank you, the culture that God has created at this church, it has to be continually fed, protected. But listen, we have to take steps to make sure that our kids have a church like this, that our grandkids have a church like this, that there are more opportunities for us to plant more churches in areas. I'm not trying to brag, but before we put a church in Woodbury, there was no church like this ever in Woodbury. Before we put a church like this in Tullahoma, there's never been a church like this in Tullahoma. Before we put one in Shelbyville, there had never been a church that taught word for word through the Bible like we do in Shelbyville. The world needs that. Our cities, our state, our counties need that. So what are we to do? Listen, I'm gonna be really, really honest with you. We have got to figure out our next step for this church. We have reached a bottleneck, and I'm gonna be very honest with you again. I don't know what it is. I have a meeting with the mayor next week. I have a meeting with a couple of commercial real estate agents. I'm talking to people. I'm praying about it a lot. I don't know what the next step is, but listen, I am very, very confident in this, and this is where I need you to join in with me in this. If we will be patient, you as a congregation, me as a pastor, I'm not a very patient person. If you know me personally, I like to be in control. I like to know what I'm doing. For 16 years, almost 16 years of doing this church, I have never thrown up my hands and been like, I don't know where we're going. That's where I am right now. It's the first time since I started the church where I'm like, I don't have any answers right now. I try, I've explored everything. I don't have it right now. But I know that if we will be patient, I know that if we will get involved, work through that process, and if we will just be faithful to the church, I don't know where the next step is, but if we will do these 3 things, I'm very confident that God will show us. God has never failed me in 16 years of doing this church. We've had to move a lot. We've been on the brink of having no money. I've been stressed to the max at times. It's been a wild ride for 16 years. But looking back, God has never let me fall on my face. And I know he will not let this church fall on its face as long as we are teaching the word, holding on to our integrity, serving and loving the city. If we're doing those things, God is not going to let us fail. So I just need you guys to be praying, getting involved, being faithful, and not giving up. Don't give up, seriously. So here's the thing. Jesus Christ in Matthew chapter 28, 19, and 20 told the church to do 3 things. Make disciples, grow the church, baptize them, make sure they're committed, and then continue to teach them. Make sure that they continue to mature. That's what Jesus asked of us. And if we are doing those 3 things as a church, we can be confident that God's going to take care of us. And here's the thing, now more than ever, and I say that every vision service, but that's because the world keeps getting more out of control. And the world needs not only Jesus, the world needs the church. We are the instrument by which God uses to reach the world. We are the tool, we are the vessel by which God uses to touch the hearts of man. That's us. I don't know where we're going in 2025, and I know that's a bad thing for a pastor of an 8,500 person church to get up here and say. But I know that if we stick to The Great Commission, if we stick to being in a tight relationship with Jesus and prayer and fasting and trusting him and being diligent with the things he's given us, I do know that whatever the next step is, God's gonna take care of it. I just need all of you to, we need to be in this together. I can't do this by myself. My team can't do it by ourselves. We need all of us to get together and to just be praying and be faithful, okay? I love you guys so much. If you're new to this place, and I'm not trying to brag, and I've said this before, those of you who've been for a while, you know what I'm talking about. This place is like lightning in a bottle. It is something so unique and so special and so different. And I just wanna make sure that we never do anything to compromise how much God is taking care of us, okay? Would you bow your heads with me, please?